That is a huge result for Arsenal. 1-0 win away from home at Spurs is always a massive, massive result. But to do it in a season where there's already so much early pressure from Man City, the Man City game obviously coming up next weekend for Arsenal as well. And then you're missing Declan Rice, who's been a mainstay in the Arsenal midfield since joining. Obviously Martin Odegaard as well. And a couple of other players actually weren't available for the game. You do look at it and think Arsenal needed to win this game. They needed to squash any pressure on them just by doing the business against Spurs. The City game, I think they can leave with a draw and actually be pleasantly surprised and happy about that and staying in the race. But losing to Spurs, going into a City game or drawing to Spurs, I just think it was already too much pressure for Arsenal. And that's maybe not their fault. Maybe it's just Man City, what Man City are doing week in, week out, what Haaland's doing week in, week out. It's just turning the screw on all these Premier League rivals for the last few years. And Arsenal are in the kind of swell of that a little bit. They go to White Hart Lane early in the season. It should be a little bit more jovial. It shouldn't feel like a crunch match in the same way that it does maybe in April, May, particularly last season as well. But Arsenal, to be fair to them, created a lot of chances. They opened the game up quite a lot, which I thought they would do. Without Declan Rice in midfield, Odegaard in midfield, I thought their job today was just to move the ball really quick, get it into Jorginho, hit first time out into Saka, into Havertz, sees what sticks, see if Trossard can get a goal with Martinelli as well. Sort of four wingers, two midfielders, just sort of 4-2-4. Get it going as quick as possible and see if they can score and outscore Spurs. And maybe have to give some chances to Spurs in their own right, which they did do. And I think they rode their luck a little bit. In the first half, again, I think it was all Arsenal just being, gambling a little bit. There was a couple of chances that came in for Martinelli, which he kind of wasted a little bit. I think there's a big question mark about Martinelli's role in this side, particularly with Sterling, who did look dangerous when he first came on, cut inside a few times, which showed a lot more direct play than maybe Martinelli showed in the whole game. Again, it wasn't end product. I think Arsenal need a little bit more end product from the left wing. I think if Spurs were a little bit tactically more subtle, a little bit more calm, I think they just manage that pressure a little bit more and not play into Arsenal's aggression. And they try and limit the game a little bit and be a little bit smarter, be a little bit more coy in a home game against Arsenal, where Arsenal are missing so many big players. I feel like Spurs a little bit played into it a little bit, and it was far too end-to-end. And both sides were creating far too many chances for my liking to control a game and try and get a positive win in this game. Obviously, it fell towards Arsenal. Second half, they shut up shop a little bit. Defensively, they looked a little bit more compact. Spurs really in the second half didn't get any big chances. I mean, Kulusevski right at the end, a couple more right at the end when Arsenal got the winner. But in reality, Arsenal they changed their gear a little bit, and then by the second half, they were looking for that set piece. I knew the set piece was coming. I knew it. I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying it, but last season they did something very similar to Spurs. You always feel that kind of, if there's a good ball in Spurs, you can just always get at Spurs. There's always some mistake there, whether it's someone not man marking who they have to man mark. Gabriel is probably the best header of the ball in the Arsenal side, alongside Saliba, probably in Declan Rice, and he's left in the box unmarked from 10 yards out. I mean, it is embarrassing. It's Sunday league level defending. Obviously, a good header from Gabriel. It was a good ball in the first place, but you have to say Romero's not picked up anyone. So your defender in the Spurs side, your defender is looking to pick up someone. He doesn't pick up anyone, particularly the 6'5" centre-back. Come on. It was tactical naivety from Spurs. We're going to talk about Spurs a little bit at the end of this video, because today just ugly scenes from Spurs, in my opinion. Yes, they created some chances. I thought Maddison, he didn't really. Kulusevski picked at the ball here and there. Brennan Johnson had most of the chances. I think Arsenal were happy about that. I think you could double up on Son a little bit, double up on Solanke, get around Solanke and stop him from doing anything. Once you do that, I think the Spurs side are very one-dimensional. I think Arsenal did a very, very good job of doing that. And once Brennan Johnson is getting chance on his right foot from 20 yards out and he's hitting row Z, it's just going to be that kind of day for Arsenal, and that'll be Spurs' problem going into the remainder of the season, in my opinion. I just don't think Brennan Johnson's anywhere near the level needed for Spurs, but obviously they've got options there long term. It was just a little bit disappointing, I think. I think Spurs had some chances. I think Spurs fans will be leaving the ground thinking we should have probably scored at least one or two of them, and maybe still lose the game 3-2 or whatever, but to sort of not score the chances that Spurs had, I think you'd be a little bit disappointed. There were some interesting, obviously, tactical changes for Arsenal. Ethan Nwaneri came on, moved the ball very, very well. A lot of debate about if he should have started this game. I can see why he didn't start the game. He looked a little bit... The first few touches were a little bit rusty. You got to remember, there's a big gap between, I even think, being 17 or 19 in football. I think you can be a little bit on the younger age of side when you're 17 years old. And going into this kind of game, I think it would have been very, very harsh to start Nwaneri against the Spurs midfield, which is very, very strong. Bentancur is a very experienced pro. Madison and Kulusevski as well was tucking in and causing a lot of issues for Thomas Partey and Jorginho. And that's the big takeaway from this Arsenal side. You're not learning much about Jorginho and Partey as a double pivot long term because Declan Rice comes back, Moreno comes back, and they've got a few other options as well. The ultimate aim for Arsenal is to leave this ground with a result, and that's all they've done. I don't think the performance was particularly good, but they had to get something after the Brighton game, after the international break, and they've done that. It was a clean sheet yet again for Arsenal away from home, which they seem to be getting year in, year out with Mikel Arteta. They rode their luck. David Raya had to pull out some saves, no question about it, but all in all, it's actually a very, very good result for Arsenal. The big thing will be, how do they go into the Man City game? What have we learned from this performance to say that they go into the Man City game, try and win the game? I really think it's important that Arsenal go into the Man City game to win it. I know you can nick a draw and then hope City drop points to Newcastle United away, for example. It's the same mathematically. But symbolically for Arsenal to go back-to-back wins against Spurs and Man City away would put a huge dent in Man City's confidence early. And that's the only time you can affect them. There's only twice a season you can ever affect a side in a Premier League title race. You know, Wenger used to beat Man United sides. Man United used to beat Mourinho sides when they were winning the title. You have to go into the ring and beat the guy that's opposite you. You can't just rely on results from other fixtures, in my opinion. And this is a massive opportunity. I never feel that Arsenal get these results away from home against Man City. And I think there's a lot of credence to why they can. The back four was very, very good today. Jurrien Timber was putting in some big, big performances, big tackles. I think he was unfairly yellow carded, by the way. Ben White, he's a Rolls Royce. You don't hear the engine with Ben White, and he just goes through games, man marking for some people, the best left winger in the Premier League. For some people, completely man marking him out of the game, completely nullifying his threat, matching him for pace, matching him for intelligence. And Son's a very, very smart footballer, and he just matched him for every aspect of his game. I don't know if that's down to Son maybe being on the decline. Maybe that's a big statement, but I've just not seen massive from him this season. He is in that kind of age category now. But Ben White handled him massively. I think it's a big confidence boost for Jorginho and Partey. They weren't particularly good on the ball, but I think they positionally worked together pretty well. They shielded the back four from any major chances, and things were left to Brennan Johnson on the overlap and getting things from near angle kind of opportunities. So defensively, Arsenal were very, very good, and they'll look at that and think, if we can lock up Haaland, where's that other goal coming from? Is it De Bruyne? Is it Gundogan? Is it a lot of rotation in that side? Rodri and Phil Foden not quite fully blooded in yet to this season because of the Euros. That's where Arsenal can jump. That's where Arsenal can hit City on the counter-attack. I think you've got to make a big call about Sterling. I think if you see something from Sterling in the Champions League, I think it's a world he starts that game against Atalanta, then you do think, actually, it's a massive opportunity for Arsenal to go to Atalanta, big European win, rotate players that can come in and prove something for you, and then see if they can start for City. And that's where I think Arsenal have to look. Can they shock City with something a little bit different? I beg to differ if Martinelli's going to be something that changes the game against Man City. And you can't just rely on defensive, being shrewd defensively to try and nick something from City. You have to see something in the forward lines. Kai Havertz a little bit underwhelming today. Saka was a little bit quiet. Might have picked up a knock as well in the game. So you're looking for a little bit more in the front lines if Arsenal are going to beat City in the next week. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Big game, big result for Arsenal. 1-0 is always good, but particularly with the context of the fixture, it's a very, very big result for Arsenal.